Welcome to Reddit Echoes, where long-buried confessions resurface, where pain hides behind polite smiles, and where truths are so raw, you'll find yourself saying, "No way." But it's all too real. In today's video, you'll hear a man who spent nearly 50 years weighed down by guilt over a lie that led to a child's death. A coworker whose body odor could open the gates of hell, turning an entire office into chaos. A girl who lost her boyfriend in an accident, and a sentence so light, it'll make you lose faith in the justice system. And finally, a romance that seemed sweet until it ended with a punch to the face, over a bald joke. Which story shocked you the most? Drop a comment below. We'll be reading along with you. Story 1. I falsely accused someone and he died. 50 years later, I'm finally telling the truth. I'm 65 years old now. It's been over half a century since that day, and yet it still clings to me like a permanent stain I'll never wash away. I don't know if anyone will believe me. But at this point, I don't care anymore. I just need to say it. Back in 1976, I was a hot-headed 17-year-old kid living in Pasadena, Texas. Stubborn, impulsive, and like most teens, I thought I knew everything. In my circle back then, there was this guy named Danny Lynn Stevens. We weren't exactly friends, more like acquaintances. Grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same school. Everyone knew everyone. One day, Danny owed me some money. Not a lot, but back then, to me, money was pride. I asked him to pay up, he didn't. One time he snapped and smashed me in the face with a Zippo lighter. Blood everywhere, broken nose, and I swore I wasn't going to let that go. A few weeks later, I was walking down the street when the cops stopped me. They were investigating a stolen car that had been dumped just a few blocks from where I was. They asked me, "Who do you think stole the car?" And just like that, Danny's name popped into my head. Instinct. Revenge. I knew it wasn't him. I knew who did it. It was someone else we both knew. But I still said Danny's name. It was pure anger. A petty, stupid act of vengeance. Months went by. I was in court for something else completely unrelated. Then this detective came up to me, handed me a photo, and asked, "Is this the guy who stole the car?" It was Danny. And I, terrified, blindsided, said, "No." I remember the detective's face. He just shrugged and said, "Doesn't matter. He's dead." My heart stopped. Wait, what dead? He said it like swatting a fly. He's dead. And then just walked away, as if Danny never existed. Later, I found a tiny blurb in the local paper. Just one short line: teenager Danny Stevens found dead in jail cell. Suicide by shirt collar. No investigation, no autopsy, no medical records. That was it. But I knew Danny. He wasn't suicidal. He was reckless, sure, a loudmouth and a jerk sometimes, but not the kind to kill himself. I believe they beat him, maybe strangled him, tried to force a confession, and when it went too far, they covered it up, called it suicide, and moved on. And I lit the match. I gave them his name, out of spite, out of pride, out of sheer teenage stupidity. It haunted me for decades, but here's the cruel irony. In 1981, they did the same thing to me, arrested me for something else, took me into the back room, beat me, strangled me, pressured me to give them a name. And guess what? The name they wanted was the actual guy who stole the car in 1976. I didn't say a word. I didn't make the same mistake twice. I didn't trust them. I don't trust them. Not after what happened to Danny. Now that I'm old, I look in the mirror and still see that stupid, reckless 17-year-old kid staring back. I don't forgive myself. But at least I've spoken up. I stood before the Pasadena City Council. I told them everything. I filed a request under the Texas Public Information Act demanding every record about Danny's death. And unless they can show me an actual report, an official document, anything real, then I have every reason to believe they killed him. It was my fault. Part of me died with Danny that day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want people to know, and maybe finally start asking the right questions. Story 2. My coworker smells and no one dares say anything. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to post on Reddit about someone else's private area odor. And yet here I am, 2 cans of body spray down buried in paperwork, writing about the aroma of my coworker. We work together in a small enclosed office space, honestly designed more like a confinement cell for hope than an actual workspace. And worse, we sit right next to each other. At least before we had a divider. But then management, under some delusional team-building initiative, decided to bring us closer together. I noticed it on day 1 after she moved desks. There was a scent unmistakable, undeniable, and definitely not from someone's lunch leftovers. It was potent, it lingered, and it had a personality. Then the horrifying truth slapped me in the face: she was the source. I know it sounds awful, but you don't understand. This isn't some mild, natural body odor. This is the kind of smell that makes you wonder if you're in a molecular biology lab. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. Then one day she walked past me and the scent followed. I swear it waved at me on the way by. The worst part, she goes to the bathroom 12 to 15 times a day. I'm not exaggerating. She even got a warning from management once for spending almost 90 minutes per shift on personal matters. But the smell, still there. Which means, whatever she's doing in there isn't helping. It's like she's fighting a losing battle and dragging the rest of us down with her. She storms off to the restroom like she's competing in the drama Olympics. Full of flair, size, and attitude, like even her cells are tired of being alive. And every single time I douse myself and my surroundings in body spray like it's an exorcism ritual. I've tried everything. Air fresheners, essential oils, mini desk fans. Once I even pretended I had a scent allergy in hopes she'd catch the hint. She just looked at me and said, "Yeah, I hate strong perfumes too." I wanted to cry. People have told me I should just be honest and talk to her. But really, imagine telling someone, "Hey, your downstairs smells like a fish corpse on fire." You think HR is gonna back me up on that one? And let's be real, I'm a guy. The second I bring up anything about a woman's body, I'm practically volunteering to be fired. I told a few friends about it. One of them said they used to know a woman with the same issue. Turns out, she'd been wiping wrong for 20 years. Front to back is fine, but she went back to front and... yeah, you get the idea. That story broke my brain. I started spiraling like, how many fully grown adults out there don't know how to wipe properly? So now I sit in silence, breathing through a paper towel, praying for a miracle or a new desk layout. I even considered bringing in a mini fan to redirect the airflow straight into my manager's office. Let them experience the chemical warfare, and maybe HR will take action when they're on the receiving end of it. I didn't post this to shame women. I posted it because I'm losing my mind. The silence in that office isn't peaceful, it's a daily test of endurance. If you've ever thought office work was boring, try sitting next to a biological hazard with legs. I don't want to raise, I just want to breathe. Story 3. The guy who killed my boyfriend got probation, and I got a lifetime sentence. I don't even know where to start. Even as I type this, my heart feels like a stone lodged in my chest. Maybe I just need someone to listen. Maybe I just want the world to know that this happened. And that sometimes, life is so unfair you want to scream, but no one hears you. My boyfriend Ethan was 20. He wasn't perfect, but he was the kindest soul I'd ever met. He loved animals. He was the kind of guy who'd pull over to let a line of ducks cross the street. The kind who'd wake up early to fix his mom's porch and then come home after a long shift to cook dinner for me. He had been saving up every cent to start college that fall. And then, on a bright sunny day in June, everything ended. Ethan was riding his motorcycle. He did everything right. He wore all the proper gear. He had his helmet on. He was going the speed limit. He followed every rule just like he always did. He was turning through an intersection when a car suddenly shot out of nowhere. No turn signal, no brake, no pause. Behind the wheel was an 18-year-old boy, eyes glued to his phone. texting, checking Instagram stories. And in one careless moment, he killed Ethan. Ethan died on the scene. The police told me he never even had a chance to react. The impact was instant, and I never got to say goodbye. I thought there would be justice. I sat in that courtroom holding Ethan's photo, his bright eyes, his soft smile telling the judge about the life that was taken from him. I thought there would be a sentence that reflected the pain, the loss, the irreversible damage. But then the judge looked over at the defendant, a clean-cut teenage boy with a tucked-in shirt, perfectly combed hair, and two tearful parents sitting beside him. They talked about how he was an honor student, how he had a bright future, how he was applying to colleges, how this was a tragic accident, and the result? 1 year probation, 100 hours of community service, no jail, no real consequence. I died again that day. My boyfriend lost his entire future. I lost the person I loved most in this world. And that kid, he just had to learn a lesson and move on with his life. I've heard people joke that in America, if you want to kill someone and get away with it, just use a car, because then it's just an accident. I don't laugh anymore. Ethan should still be alive. Right now, he should be holding me. He should be picking college classes, planning weekend camping trips, dreaming with me about our future. Instead, I'm here, typing this, wearing our matching ring, and there's no one left to wear the other half. People say I should forgive. That life goes on. But I can't help but feel it's all so unfair. Not because I want that kid to die, but because the system looked at Ethan's death and decided it didn't matter as much as someone's college application. If you're still reading, please remember this. Every name, every accident, every news headline, behind all of that was a real human being, with a heart, with dreams, with someone who loved them deeply. Ethan wasn't an accident. He was my entire world. And now, that world is gone. Story 4. I cried out of jealousy. My friend got $375K of debt erased, just because his parents are rich. I know jealousy isn't a noble emotion, but today I was so jealous I cried. I'm not the type to play the victim card or whine about being broke. I work, I hustle, I'm independent. But there are moments in life when you look at someone else and ask yourself, why am I struggling this hard? While they live like it's some indie rom-com with a trust fund twist. My friend, let's call him Mark, is a good guy. But he's also the kind of good that comes with a blissful, privileged cluelessness. The kind that's never had to worry about where his next meal was coming from. Mark grew up in a ridiculously wealthy family. Private schools, studied design in Italy. When I was stressing about how to pay rent, he was stressing about which wine to bring to his parents' dinner party. Still, I stuck around. Because friendship, I thought, doesn't care about class. That is, until the $375,000 loan incident. Mark decided he wanted to launch a luxury handbag line. No market research, no real business plan, no validation of customer demand. Just a casual, I like drawing weird bags and I think people will buy them. Then, he took out a loan, $375,000. I remember just sitting there, jaw on the floor. While I was picking up weekend shifts to afford community college, he was borrowing nearly $500,000 because he liked bags. And of course, it bombed. He didn't sell a single one. Not one. Nada. He had an entire closet full of handbags, each costing over $2,500 to make, and market collecting dust like expensive regrets. I thought finally, a wake-up call. Time for Mark to learn that life isn't always padded with safety nets. And then, the call. It was my lunch break. I remember it so vividly. Mark called chirping like he'd just won concert tickets. Dude, crazy news. My parents just said I don't have to repay the loan. They covered it, said I can just think of it as an early inheritance. His voice was so casual, like he just got a bonus espresso shot, not a life reset button worth $375,000. I hung up 2 minutes into the call. Not out of anger, just disbelief. I'd scraped and saved for years to cobble together a few thousand for tuition. I'd had nights where I had to choose between buying meds or dinner. I cried when I lost a minimum wage part-time job. And here was someone who blew a house's worth of money on a failed passion project and walked away debt-free with just a phone call. I was jealous. Jealous in a way that made me ashamed. I cried in the company bathroom, biting down sobs so no one would hear. It wasn't about the bags or the money. It was the weightlessness of Mark's life. How every failure was cushioned. How he didn't even know how lucky he was because he'd never had to carry that kind of weight. I used to believe everyone had their own journey. But that moment, that's when I realized where you start changes everything. Mark isn't a bad person, but he will never understand the world I live in. A world where every dollar counts, where every mistake has a price, where no one erases your debt just because you have a bright future. As for me, I'm still working, still paying off my student loans one installment at a time. And sometimes when I remember that call, I catch myself wondering if my parents were rich like Mark's. Would my life look different too? Story 5. He punched me, just because I called him bald. I don't know how you define losing control, but for me, it's when a guy you're dating punches you in the face, because you joked about him going bald. No, I'm not exaggerating. This wasn't playful teasing that went too far. This wasn't he slipped up. This was a real punch. And the reason? Because I dared to touch the one thing more fragile than his hairline, his ego. It started off as any normal relationship. Mason, my then boyfriend, and I had been together for about 6 months. He was decent-looking, tall, dressed well, had a stable job. Everything was fine. Except for one thing, he was obsessed with his hair. Like clinically obsessed. He owned 3 different shampoos, 2 bottles of hair growth serum, a wooden comb he swore prevented breakage, and a full 25-minute hair care routine. I wish I was kidding. I timed him once. I honestly thought I was dating a beauty influencer, not a grown man. Now was his hair great, eh? Not bad. But certainly not worth writing a ballad over. It was thin, especially around the front. His hairline was slowly packing its bags and retreating. But I never said anything. I'm not the kind of person who mocks someone's looks. Until that night. We were at a friend's birthday party. People were drinking, joking around, playing truth or dare. And when it was my turn to pick, I chose truth. Someone asked if your boyfriend had to either shave his head or grow a mustache for life, which would you pick? Without thinking, I chuckled and said, probably shave, he's basically bald already anyway. Everyone laughed, except Mason. I saw his face change. He stood up, poured himself another drink, and sat back down quiet. Didn't say another word for the rest of the night. I thought crap. I went too far with the joke. On the way home, I apologized. Several times. Told him it was just a harmless joke. I figured the silence meant he was sulking. But when we got home, I took off my shoes, turned around to look at him, and then bam! A punch to my left cheek. No warning, no words, just rage and a fist. I fell to the ground, dazed, confused. It took me a second to register what just happened. My boyfriend had just punched me because I called him bald. I screamed. Mason immediately stepped back, hands shaking, stammering, I didn't mean to. You made me lose control. I didn't hear the rest. I grabbed my phone, called my best friend, and left. That night, no hesitation. The next day, he texted me 12 times. I'm so sorry. I was triggered. It was a reflex. You hurt my pride. Yeah. Well, your pride isn't supposed to be in your fists. And my cheekbone has limits. I blocked him. Forever. I didn't press charges, didn't call the police. Maybe I should have. But I told myself a man who punches a woman over a bald joke is eventually going to destroy himself. I'm sharing this because red flags aren't always loud. Sometimes they're disguised as 3 shampoo bottles and an ego more fragile than his thinning hair. Stay safe. and trust your instincts, especially when they tell you to run. Thank you for listening to today's stories filled with raw emotions and just the right amount of controversy. If you've been through something similar or have a story you've never dared to share with anyone, Reddit Echoes is always here to listen. Don't forget to hit like if you think it was worth it. Subscribe so you don't miss the next true Reddit stories. And drop a comment to share your thoughts, even if they're controversial. Because here we don't judge, we just echo the truth.